Hey everybody, welcome to the second mini movie review. This one I'm doing on 2017's Rings. I believe it is the third in the series. Now the reason I'm doing this one is the original one, when it came out in 2002, it really meant a lot to me, or at least freaked me out pretty good. I think it was like my 17th birthday or so, and I had a bunch of friends over, and I think we probably got pizza and stuff. And it scared the crap out of us. Like, I remember, like, I think my parents, it was all really, like, we were freaking each other out more than we probably needed to. I remember we were all in the dark and just, like, screaming, and it was really fun, and we still talk about it to this day. And the movie, the thing that made me freak out the most about the movie, I think, is the sound. Like, when you watch the movie, the one that kills you, as you know, Ring was, or I guess The Ring, it's basically a tape of a little dead girl, and she somehow gets passed around throughout VHS at the time. I'm kind of thinking maybe this one might be a little more DVD or something, we'll see. But basically she, you watch the movie and then she gives you a phone call for some reason because she knows how to use the phone. And then she says, 7 days. And then you die in 7 days. And so it used to freak us out. I thought it was a good movie. I still like it. I like psychological horror stuff, and it's still a fun movie. So it came out in 2002, and it made a impression on me. I even remember, like I said, the sounds of it. Like, if you just turn on and hear the sound that they make when they're playing the tape. It's about a little girl who was murdered, named Samara, and her death was so tragic that it caused this supernatural video thing, I guess, to kill people until someone figured out her story. But basically, Samara, her faces were like her face, of course it was like the black haired girl. It's overdone now a little bit, like after they made the Grudge remake and things like, or reboot and all that stuff like that. There's always like some creepy little girl with hair that's like in her face. The faces that she would make people do, like contort when she would kill them, that was pretty creepy. I also thought the video itself in the movie that people watch, it's got an artisticness to it, like an artistic flair that's kind of interesting, because you really, as you go through it, you're kind of piecing together different things from her life. And I believe there's the second movie in the Now trilogy, I think was a little more, let me see here. I'm looking up some things on Wikipedia here, kind of brushing up on my Ring history. So yeah, The Ring 2 came out in 2005, so yeah. So The Ring 2 was fine. It made great in the box office, looks like. But in this one, I kind of liked, like, it's still a similar thing. Like, they thought after the first Ring that they had helped Samara and everything was cool. But she was a very angry little girl. And after her death, it's kind of, she didn't have a great life and death. So basically, The Ring 2 just continues the couple, the mom and her son, into the second movie. And Samara gets a little more control and takes over the little boy's body and things like that. What I kind of liked about the second one, it wasn't super great. The first one was definitely much more of an impact on me. The second one was fine. The thing I did like about it is learning more about Samara's past and her mother, and there's a whole like mental history background and stuff in it that was kind of interesting. So then that brings us to the third one, which is Now. So 12 years later, almost 13 years later, yeah, Rings comes out. And I haven't seen it yet, so this is, that's why I'm doing this thing. I've been wanting to kind of maybe, at first I was like, really, they're making another one? It's been such a long time. So they did this one. It doesn't really have the original people in it. It's got like a new cast. It was released February 3rd, 2017 in the United States. It runs approximately 102 minutes, and its budget was $25 million, and it made $83.1 million. So, it did pretty good in the box office. Surprisingly, considering it's been such a gap. Alright, so Rings 2017, that just came out, it's rated PG-13 for violence, terror, thematic elements, some sexuality, and brief drug material. I'm gonna go and watch the movie, and we'll see what I think. I'm a little excited just to see it, see where they take it, but we'll see. So I will be back as soon as I'm done. So I finished watching Rings, and I don't know, where do I want to begin? It was okay. It was fine. It did add something to the trilogy, which is nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's see. I'll start with like the good things. It was creepy. I liked it. It did have some creep to it. Since I've already seen, like, they did do a couple of the like little death faces whenever people see her. And since I've seen those before, it wasn't as scary, but it was still, you know, it was nice that they threw it in there, like, as kind of a callback to the first one. But so that was cool. It did have some creepiness to it, you know, some eeriness. It was nice that they used the same video from the first one that people would watch. The characters were fine. You know, I thought they were, you know, everything was fine with that. They, you know, was acted well and things like that. But other than that, I mean, it did add to the story. Like, you found out a lot more about her backstory, which I was kind of surprised that there even, I mean, there still was more, but you didn't really feel like you needed it, but it was nice to have it. And at least you got to know more about Samara and all her past. But really, when you think about it, because, I mean, it's still sad that she was killed, and basically what happened is she got so-called suffocated, and her adopted mother, threw her down into a well and sealed it up. But the poor girl lived for like 7 days in the well and was very bitter. But then when you really think about the story, she was evil. You know, she was born of an evil, and you find out more about her backstory based on that in this movie. And it's, you know, she really, I know she did things to like their horses and stuff, but I don't know exactly how evil she was. But her adopted parents didn't understand her, nor did her real parents too much. You know, they all knew something was wrong with her, and, you know, she never got the love or anything or understanding that she needed. So she was very bitter about it in her death. I mean, it's sad, but it's still like she was still evil, but it adds a nice supernaturalness to the movie, because no matter what, you can just be like, well, that's just how it is. But then that was pretty much where the good starts. I mean, it was still entertaining, and I liked some of it, you know, some of all that, and just like, and bringing it all back around. But now when I get into like the bad stuff, in the beginning I kind of was thinking like, okay, it's going to be set in this time, 2017, so, or around the time. So in the digital era with all the social media and stuff, I was like, okay, this is going to be crazy, because she could really travel it a lot. And so in the beginning of this movie, I realized, you know, maybe it's still VHS. And so part of me was like, okay, cool. If it's VHS, it's going to be harder to get passed around, especially nowadays when people aren't using VCRs quite as much. So you'd have to get a VCR. You have to make a copy with the VCR tape, because the point is you make a copy and you can have someone else watch it, and it saves you. Or at least maybe temporarily, but it saves you to some extent. So when it started out in the movie, the first scene is on this airplane, and there's a guy on there saying he watched a movie and it's been 7 days, and I'm like, you know, he's telling this girl during a little bit of turbulence what happened, and that he's kind of freaked out about it, that he thinks he's going to die. And I'm like, that's a lovely story to tell someone on a plane. But, you know, it kind of escalates from there. But the thing I didn't like about it is the plane goes down and everyone dies, and I was like, wait a minute, why is Samara taking out everyone? Like, I don't remember her doing that quite as much in other movies. I'm like, wouldn't she have just killed him on the plane, like in the bathroom or something like that, and then left his weird freaky corpse for everyone to find? I don't understand why she had to take down the whole plane. And that's where it kind of, like, right in the beginning, I was like, what? I'm like, I don't know, like, why has she got so much power over that? And so then it kind of cuts to 2 years later, and the movie goes on from there, and you just, you know, you learn about this couple, Holt and Julia, and Holt goes off to college, and it goes into this whole thing about tapes, and there's a professor, and he's played by Johnny Galecki, and he basically sees the video, or finds the tape that the original character in the beginning from the airplane watched, and he's a professor, and so he really gets into the neuroscience behind it and starts to understand what it is. I don't know how he was able to understand that all in a week to move it on, because he ends up living quite a bit longer after the 1 week, because he starts passing it on. But the thing I didn't like about that is later it becomes this whole society of all these people watching it, all these college kids that he's kind of tricking into doing all this. And the place that they go to is like this secret penthouse kind of thing that I'm like, he's a college professor in a small town, I think. I can't imagine how he got the funding for all these computers and all this tracking device. I'm like, what? That's not, come on, you know, it's a little far-fetched. But it was an interesting kind of point on the story. But of course, Samara, she's very cryptic. She's a very cryptic little dead girl. And so it takes forever for her to get her story across. And so it's actually, you know, they do keep it to the point with the timeline that it has been 13 years, you know, since all this went down. And basically she kind of appears to Julia more, you know, another mother type figure like she has in the other movies. And she keeps showing her different messages, but she adds stuff to the video just for Julia, which I find was kind of weird. But now they find out that you can start putting the video, like they've been just making copies of it on the computer and sending it to each other. So now I'm like, okay, so now you can watch it on your phone and you can watch it. Like, it's kind of, I was like, this could get kind of crazy. I was thinking maybe it'd be a little better if it just stuck to VHS, because it was just a little more, you know, a little harder to obtain. I don't understand why she adapts and things like that. I mean, yeah, she calls you on your phone too. So, I mean, hard telling, you know, I don't know. You know, maybe she just has a lot of powers, but she's very cryptic girl. It takes her forever, and she likes to do this thing where she wants to scare the crap out of you first before you get to it. So it's like she's got to weed out who really wants to know her message. So they eventually figure out kind of more where she came from, her birth story and things like that, and that was fine. I thought that was a nice part, kind of putting the pieces together. You know, it's more of a psychological thriller, which I kind of like, you know, just to find out what happened to her and the things like that. And it was fine. It was going good until about the last 10-15 minutes, and it just took like a downward spiral for me. It just didn't hold up. The ending was weird. There's a point where she kind of comes out of the girl's cell phone, but then she's like in a wall of cicadas, so they don't really show her putty. Because I was like, if they show her hand shooting out of that cell phone, I'm going to be upset. But because I'm like, that's ridiculous. She won't break that cell phone. And then she just kind of metastasized out of the cicadas above the phone. So I was like, okay, well, that's a little better, but it's still weird. And then there's just a couple little plot points that didn't make sense of why her power was pushed down for so long, or why. Really, when it comes down to it, by the end, she really is an evil girl. She's evil. So then at the end, there's a plot point there where it kind of kicks off the last 10-15 minutes where I'm like, no. There's like no stopping this girl, you know, and it's just crazy. I'm like, that's kind of what I was worried about in the beginning of with the digital, like, social media age, of how fast this could spread. So it basically kind of kicks off something about that, and it's just this whole thing that this was like her plan all along, and it really kind of put a bummer on it for me, because I had a higher rating for it, and, you know, up until the last like 10-15 minutes where I was like, oh, okay, you know, like, I was like, maybe we should just wrap it up, you know, like, why is everything so cryptic with this girl, you know? And so even if they wanted to kill her parents or anything, apparently, you know, it's just not possible. So basically, if you're into the Ring series or any of those Ring kind of movies, I would say give it a watch. It's pretty good in the fact that it does add a little bit to the story. You know, it's a lot of the same kind of stuff, but I mean, they do try to adapt it to 2017, which is nice in a way, but there are a couple bit of plot holes and questions that you just kind of gotta let go because it's supernatural. You're just like, okay, cool. But I mean, it's still worth a watch. I had a little bit of a higher review for it, like rating for it, but after that ending, I don't know, I liked it fine, but I mean, I don't know if I'd watch it again like anytime soon or anything. But I mean, if you like the set, you know, give it a watch. It's fine. It's entertaining for that. So if I had to give it a rating out of, let's say, out of VCRs, so out of 10 VCRs, I had a higher one, but I dropped it at that last 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to say probably 5 out of 10 VCRs. So not super high, but not super bad. I mean, it was shot well, and, you know, it had a lot of dark gloominess to it. It just was a little silly in the plot, and the ending was just kind of meh. So I'm going to say 5 out of 10. I was going to go a little higher than that, but I don't know. I don't think I can. So I'm going to go 5 out of 10 VCRs for Rings 2017. So that's my movie review over Rings, and like I said, take a watch of it if you like, you know, watch it if you like it. The Ring stuff, it's fun for what it is. But yeah, 5 out of 10 VCRs, and thank you for listening.